We saw them on day 2, out for one of our permitted walks. 3 ships, liners, standing out in the water. Aye, conspicuous in their stillness as tankers slipped between them on their way to Grangemouth. Couldn't figure out what they were doing. Hospital ships, she says. The government is commandeering liners for hospital ships. And the next day I went to check, but the Har was in and all I could see was the rollers breaking out at the fret a few feet away. I stood staring into the fog until the chill got my bones. On the way back to the flat I passed a seagull eating what had once been another seagull. He stops, stares at me, then laughs me out of his sight. I came away feeling worried. Through the rain I see my neighbour, 90 years old, won't take a hand from anyone. Takes her 20 minutes to go up the close steps. Maggie, was it? Martha? Get back, she shouts, and I'm holding the door. Going up first, you'll not be waiting on me coughing your feckin' germs at me, just on up you go. She smiles, so I know she's being wide. We do this like mad ballet in the stair, 6 feet apart in a passage 3 feet wide. Later I'm thinking about Marjorie or Miriam, whatever, in her bed. All sheets and either down, tucked right up to her chin, pure muttering what the world can do with its COVIDs and lockdowns and quarantines. Like a cough can kill what the Luftwaffe couldn't. Oh, blitz spirit, man. That's a brown-stained Macintosh of a phrase. Conjures up notions of sing-songs and tube stations. You know, a happy, cheering underclass pure grateful for the opportunity to be bombed out of a slum. We have spontaneous sing-songs on balconies and wonder why the government scrabbles madly for war analogies. I'm loving those live updates though. Seeing them public school boys truly out their depth, foreheads all creased, genuinely worrying for the first time ever. They call it a war, but there was a war on yesterday and that wasn't an emergency. People dying under bombs or under bridges and none of that mattered. People starving in deserts, or just because the food bank's been robbed, and none of that mattered. Interesting what suddenly matters. These guys burn tenors in the faces of the hungry for a joke. Now they're talking about protecting the NHS. Giving doctors and nurses a nice cheap clap while they fall like flies. On day 4 I'd done a load of research on the Blitz and bored the girl into a stooshy. Told her the tragic truth, that for every washboard sing-song there was a rape, a theft and a murder. She's no having it. Gives me a telling off for making the crisis political and storms off to bed. I know I shouldn't let facts spoil a good story. They're only facts. Facts that make me wonder what's happening behind the closed doors of the crisis. So I light a fag and just watch the smoke spiral across the space between me and the unknowns in the flat above. Are they okay? Do they need help? Are they alone? Though there are worse things than being alone. How many people out there would leave tonight if they could? Because they promised themselves the next time would be the last time. Next time they'd go. Now this thinking makes me anxious, so I control my breathing and listen to the silent drifting thoughts of my neighbours, the narratives they're creating for me. Somehow I find sleep, but the smoke lies heavy in the air and the smell of burning infects my dreams. I dreamt I saw these 3 cargo ships sailing out the Forth and the decks are piled high with bodies, all on each other, limbs entwined like something out of Belson. Hundreds of them, thousands, and among the dead, the living are walking in yellow plastic suits, spraying the corpses with fluid. They sail on, and just when they think they're out of sight, they light their cargo. A sheet of flame on the horizon. I'm far away, but somehow I can see hands. Burning hands, flesh turning to charcoal as the rain cools it. I wake with a tightness in my chest. Bathroom. I fumble at the tap, get warm first and panic, spit it out, and then it's cold. And it's good. The breathing slows, eases. They say tightness in the chest is a symptom of the virus. I must have had it since I was 15. It took me so long to go outside, to trust outside. I had to be encouraged, threatened to go outside. And now that tightness in the chest from basic human interaction is coming from inaction, sliding back into old habits. Am I letting the side down? I see communities coming together, people reaching for closeness. Everyone is trying their best, I get it. Sharing advice and cooking tips and banal hopes for the world after the crisis. But there's a false jolly smile to all this. Making false promises for how good they'll be, how altruistic they'll be when everything gets back to normal. Like normal was a fucking treat or something. They just can't wait to relight the blast furnace and shove the earth back on the hob. I can see them now, trooping right back to their old narrow cares. I can't believe this changes forever, because I cared when they didn't. And it scares me that they can't wait to not care again. On the 5th day, she said she wanted to go foraging. For Nels and ground elder and God knows what else. We had plenty of food, but I kinda sensed she'd been waiting on the day. She smiled at me, elbow deep in a stand of nettles, last of the winter sunshine on her lashes. And my heart melted a little, despite the meal to come. That night we had nettle soup, of course. Unsurprisingly, it tasted of dog whey. And once she'd gone to bed, I ordered a pizza. Went down on the street and stood face to face with one of the foot soldiers of the crisis. Fucking surreal. I'm all like, cheers pal, but he just drops the box on the ground and takes these 3 big steps backwards, and he's back in the car and off. And there's my altruism, $5 tip, probably infected, still sitting in my pocket where it remains. I was just about to head up and join the rest of the nation, smiling at danger or forgetting there was ever a crisis. I stopped dead. That's when I noticed 3 ships in the river. They were moving, coming into port. I couldn't stop myself. Wake up, darling, look, the ships. She says, what the fuck do you order a pizza for?
It's late. He's just come to bed. But it's always been like this. And it's fine. It really is fine. Furlough's got us both into some strange new time zone. A new rhythm. Breakfast is a movable feast somewhere between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. 11 p.m. to 3 a.m, well, that's game time. And that's fine. I don't sleep too well if he's in here with me. And I don't like being held tight. Not always. I move around too much, and he lays there all night motionless, and he's so much bigger than me. A huge piece of motionless meat. Try sleeping with a dead cow in your bed. So I've done a lot of reading, and I've learned a lot. Coming out of lockdown was an education in itself. They opened us up, the non-essential businesses. Customers coughing and shouting and complaining their spittle across my visor. Oh, do I have to wash my hands? I didn't believe in all that. This cheeky old boy's grinning at me. No mask. You don't believe in germ theory? Wow, that's niche. I got a telling off for that. And that's when I started thinking about being non-essential. Before this happened, it was essential that I drag myself out of bed, pack myself in a metal tube with the diseased, the dying, and fritter my life away in service of someone so pathetic and pitiful he hides his money in a Caribbean island. Imagine being that guy. So terrified that some of his pennies might buy a stethoscope or a pay rise for an house. Propping up pricks like that was essential. And then it wasn't. And now it is again. Like my dad. He was essential. and then they closed the pit. I was just a kid, but you'd think I'd have learned. Nothing is essential forever. Times change. If you can't work from home, watch out. Wait and see where essentialness will land you. I wish people could see what's coming. It's an angry, furry, rodent thought scurrying around my brain. The rodent brain that won't stop gnawing, but what can you do when the country is a stinking, sinking ship and day after day they turn those inhuman pig-red eyes into the camera and lie? Make their mistakes our movements, their delays our decisions, their failures our faults. And King Rat himself, with 100,000 unnecessary deaths under his belt, a true British hero. It makes you fit to scream at the impossibility of being lumbered with these twats while the world goes to shit. I didn't want it to be true. I made believe there was a golden age to reach back to. And maybe we might reach for each other again. But history whips the surface like a whale's tail. And that's when you realise that worse than there never having been a golden age, but the one you're living in, is the age of idiots. Back then, a witch doctor would sell you a bag of herbs, and if you're still sick in the morning, well, God's mysterious, but at least a quack knows he's a quack. And even the plague doctors knew enough to wear a fucking mask. Look how far we've come. An age of genius. A vaccine in a year. An age of idiots. People prepared to die of their own ignorance. And me, stuck with it all. And just when I thought I could step outside and let that breath go, they plunged me under. Without breath and water, rising, made redundant. Just in time for the second wave. Then one night they found me. Those wicked Tory rodent thoughts. As I lay in bed listening to the fella's dreams, he says something's burning. I stroke his back until he's settled. And then I think about the world turning and burning. And the thought creeps in. The break the world's getting. Is it healing? They say the air's cleaner and there's whales in the Forth. And maybe, just maybe this is what the world needs. Maybe a few 100 million deaths is what we need to put the world back on its axis. My eyes snap open. I realise immediately what I've done, how terrible it is. I feel the probing finger of the universe come down and prod me just underneath my ribs, like the cosmos heard my thought and some supernatural justice poked through the clouds and said, "You, I'll teach you a thing or two about life." And right then and there, I knew, as sure as if I'd been told. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling. At long last, he hears me worrying, rolls over. "Listen," I said, "I'm pregnant." He looks frightened, like a little boy. "How?" "Well, when mummies and daddies love each other very much." My joke doesn't land. They never do. He's still there, grim, sad, scared. "How'd you know?" "I just know." "Aye, but how?" "Just a feeling." "You missed your period?" "Not yet." "Well, how'd you know?" "Will you relax? It's not going to burst out any minute like a fucking alien." He reaches out and takes my hand. And for a minute I think he's going to say something soothing. Like maybe reassure me for a second, but no. No fucking luck. "I'll go down the chemist and I'll get you a test." He smiles. He's trying. I don't need a fucking test. I knew it was my punishment for wicked thoughts or wicked ways, or well, Mum was Catholic, so just generally being wicked, I suppose, and wicked for fucking with all the dying going on. No! For the rodent thought. The brain breathing out. Writing off 100 million lives, knowing full well it wouldn't be enough to make the slightest difference. And so I was given a life. But it was punishment. You've got a life now, and there's death potential in every breath. Every surface is deadly. You'll be boiling and cleaning till the steam cooks you. This is what you must go through. This is what it means to be essential. He rolls back, breathes out long like he's thinking. Not too hard though, because he says, "You're too old. 41, that's pushing it." I could have punched him, but I got up instead, drank some water, and got down to some yoga. After a few minutes, the bear pads in and sits and breathes with me. He's been good about that these days, since he can't afford the fags anymore, or beer or pizza or all the other little things he used to freeze out his nibbling thoughts. So we sit and stretch, and the winter sun comes and warms our faces for a second, and we breathe. And then he says, "I wouldn't mind, you know." What's that? A wee boy or a girl? He corrects himself in time. Or anything. A unique moment. Woke and awake, and it's only 9 a.m. I'm impressed. And at least we're on the same page. It's not ideal, but it's not like we're doing anything else. For the rest of the day, it seemed like we'd turned a corner. Like the heaviness inside me was gone, and I could breathe. So I went to see a doctor. And after some prodding and poking and peeing and joking, the doc looks over her glasses at me and asks, "Is everything all right?" Is everything all right? Well, let me see now. The long, low, rolling, never completed wave of air on hold gears up. Money spiralling away, not replaced. Quitting fags, then gum, then sweets. Then talking, then thinking, worrying. What if Mum gets it? Dad, Nan, him? My anger at me, at him, the system, the politicians, the bankers, the anti-vaxxers, all the people making a profit, all the people apparently living their best life in the worst of times, and me. What am I doing? Wasting your time, Doc. But I lied beautifully. Aye, why? She sighs, looks down at her notes. I'm not pregnant, am I? She takes off her glasses. Is she smiling beneath that mask? No, she says. No, you're not. Just like that. Non-essential after all.